this video, we're going to be taking a look at Proctortrack and how you can complete the onboarding process. Proctortrack is some software used by Western and other universities to ensure the integrity of online exams. If you're taking an online exam or distance studies exam at Western University, you might have to deal with this during your tests or final exams. So it's a good idea to know what it is and how to complete the onboarding process, which we'll cover today in this video. So what is Proctortrack? Well, as I mentioned, it's software to ensure the integrity of the exam. But on a more technical level, it's going to display an overlay over your computer screen, and it's going to record your webcam, your microphone, and your computer screen, but only during the examination. So this overlay is going to clearly show when it's recording and what's happening. So it also monitors all running applications, web pages that are open, and devices connected to the computer, like how many monitors or keyboards there are. But again, it's only doing this during your exam. So it also has some tools for using facial detection, eye tracking, object recognition to sort of automatically flag and detect any potential exam rule violations. So anything like suspicious behavior, extra people in the room, talking, or unauthorized websites or applications. It's going to track that, but once again, only during the exam. And it's going to be required for more distance studies courses and online sections that have an online final exam. Particularly by our department, they do require its use. So I know there could be a few privacy concerns here. So it's important to note that Proctortrack does not have any access to or able to copy any of the files off your computer. So it's not going to be accessing any of your personal files on your hard drive. It also doesn't allow any kind of remote control or access to your computer. It's just recording the webcam during the final exam, essentially. It also doesn't track or upload or store your keystrokes, and it doesn't try to find or store anything like date of birth, credit card, bank account numbers, or any other sensitive information. And this tracking of your webcam, your microphone, and your screen is only done during the exam. As soon as you're done the exam, it's no longer tracking it, and you're free to uninstall the software. So Western has additionally taken a number of technical and legal protections to ensure your data is safe. The data is only going to be stored or uploaded to servers located in Canada, so all Canadian privacy laws apply. All exam data, like recordings of your screen and webcam, are going to be securely deleted after 180 days after the date of the final exam. And all student profile data, so that would be things like your name, your email, and your Western username, will be also deleted after 365 days from Proctortrack servers. So Western's use of Proctortrack has been verified to be compliant with all privacy laws in Canada and Ontario, and there is a contractual relationship between Western and the parent company of Proctortrack that has provisions that secure student data. So we do take their data privacy very seriously, and we try to do the minimal amount of data collection that we can, just to ensure the integrity of the final exam. It is important to ensure the integrity of the final exam because your degree and your fellow classmates' degree that you're eventually going to earn is going to be reliant on the reputation of Western, and we don't want people to think that just because you took a course online, that means it's more likely to be worth less than an in-person course. So I'm going to cover a few frequently asked questions I get about Proctortrack from students. And the first one is usually, what happens if my exam is flagged? For example, if I look away and Proctortrack flags that, or if I have to go to the bathroom and leave the room or something and my exam gets flagged, does that mean I failed? And no, it doesn't. All your exam being flagged means is that the TA or the course instructor is going to have to manually review that part of the video that was flagged. And then it will be up to the course instructor to make a decision on that. And I can tell you from personal experience from using Proctortrack in the past, the very vast majority of these flags are not real. So the instructor is probably just going to come in, see that you're just clearly just looking or stretching, and you won't even hear anything about it. So don't worry if the software says your exam's been flagged or anything like that. Unless you hear something back from your instructor, it's probably completely fine. Another question is if you can use Proctortrack, for example, on your cell phone and have your computer while you're taking the exam, or use two different systems in that way. And unfortunately, the answer is no. The Proctortrack software isn't really set up for this. So the Proctortrack software has to be running on the same computer that you're taking the exam on. And for that reason, you're only allowed one system with one keyboard and one monitor. And that system has to be a Windows or Apple computer to take the exam. So you can't do this exam on your cell phone or tablet. And another question that we commonly get is, what if I have to go to the bathroom? Well, that is allowed, and there are some rules to follow, and they are essentially just don't break the rules of the exam while going to the bathroom. So you have to get up, usually say to the camera, I'm going to the bathroom, and then walk out, go to the bathroom, and on your way there, don't talk to anyone, don't use any electronic devices, don't pick up any notes or textbooks, or anything like that. Just go directly to the bathroom, do whatever you have to do, and then come back, and it should be fine. Proctortrack will flag your exam for the instructor to look at, but they'll see that you said, I'm going to the bathroom, and it will be fine, and you'll probably never hear anything about it. But one thing to keep in note, your exam time doesn't pause while you're going to the bathroom, just like in a real physical exam, so do make sure you don't take your time. Another one is, can I have food, water, notes, blank paper, etc. while taking the exam? Well, this is up to the instructor of your course. I'm trying to make this video generic so it can be used in multiple courses. So if you're my student, I will somewhere else have posted the rules for the exam. If you're a student of another instructor, do make sure that you read for your course syllabus or the exam rules to see what the rules are. So Proctortrack can be configured to allow or disallow each of these, but depending on the instructor, they may have different rules because they think that's more or less secure. So before starting the exam, Proctortrack will usually show you a screen that displays all of the rules your instructor has selected, but also make sure that you check your course syllabus, any instructions from the professor, and the cover page of the exam before you get started. Another question is, can I have blank application running on my computer? Usually it's something like Excel, Word, things like that. Again, this is going to be up to your course instructor, so check the rules of your exam. Proctortrack can be configured to allow or disallow certain applications. In most cases, though, the professor's probably going to limit you to using just a web browser, and the only site you can access is OWL. In some cases, they might allow you to use Word or like the calculator on your computer, but that will have to be clearly stated in the exam rules. You shouldn't assume that you can unless it says you're allowed to. So what happens if my computer crashes, restarts, or the power goes out? So it's not that big of a deal. You can simply restart your computer or restart any of the software that's crashed, and then you restart the exam just by taking the exact same steps that you started it to begin with. That'd be going to the Proctortrack tab, going through the little process where you have to do the room scan, and then it will link you back into OWL and start the exam where you left off. Your questions should all be still saved, so you shouldn't have lost any progress, just a little bit of time. So do try to keep getting back into the exam as fast as possible because the exam timer keeps going, but it should be possible to start off where you left off. Proctortrack will probably flag your exam for that happening, but again, that just means the instructor is going to take a look and probably see that you just had a little computer issue and you came back on right away. So what happens if you need help during the exam or you have technical issues? Well, you should contact Western's exam support team. During exams, they have a dedicated team of people to help support students that are doing remote exams, and you can talk to them during the exam by clicking on that exam support tab that I show on the screen right now. And that would be in OWL, and it would be one of the tabs that you see on the side of your screen. And this tab should be available during the exam, and they can help with any technical issues you might have. They can also document those issues, so if you want to talk to your instructor later about the issues you had, there will be a record of it if you go through them. So if you have tech issues, make sure that you are documenting it by talking to Western's support team. In some cases, they can also help with sort of questions about the content of the exam and forward those on to your instructor. So now we're going to actually show the onboarding process. But before we get into that, I want you to make sure you have these following things. You need your student ID, a webcam, it can be built into your laptop, that's fine, a microphone, and that can be built into your laptop or your webcam. You're going to need a Windows or Mac computer, a reliable internet connection, and a web browser installed on your computer. Western's exam support team recommends Chrome, but I think it does technically work in other browsers. Make sure that you've tested them with your onboarding and you don't switch up what browser you're using during the actual exam. In fact, that raises a good point. You should try to keep your computer as close to possible as it was during onboarding as writing the final exam, because you know everything's set up and ready to go. You also need to be in a quiet and well-lit room. That doesn't matter as much for onboarding, but it'll definitely be critical for the final exam. And you're going to need about 30 minutes of time to complete this onboarding process, probably a bit less. So let's get into it now and see how you do the onboarding. Okay, we're now going to go over the Proctortrack onboarding process. To start, open up your browser to your OWL course site and take a look at the side tabs. There should now be a tab called Proctortrack, and you're going to want to click on that to start your final exam or to start the onboarding process. It's important that you do go to the Proctortrack tab and not the Tests and Quizzes tab. So once again, when you want to take your final exam or do onboarding, click on Proctortrack and not Tests and Quizzes. So once you do that, you should get the Proctortrack dashboard. And over on the right here, it's basically showing that you haven't done the onboarding yet. If you have done the onboarding in another course, it should show that you've done it here or that it's expired. You have to refresh the onboarding every so often. So you should also see a list of tests. In some courses, you might see more tests if you've done things like midterms and things like that, or there might just be one onboarding test. In any case, if you're doing the onboarding, look for the word onboarding. It's usually in the name too. That will be the test you have to do your onboarding. During the final exam or a midterm or something like that, there might be more than one test listed here. So do pay attention to the instructions that your instructor sends, as it will say what test name to use or what test to use. If you use the wrong test, it might not let you actually take the exam and just boot you back out to OWL. So do make sure you select the right test based on your instructor's instructions before the final exam. For our purposes right now, we want to do onboarding, so look for the one that says onboarding beside it, and click Go to Test. This is going to bring up the rules and instructions for how to use Proctortrack, so let's go through each of these. The first is going to be some general things you have to do to your environment to get ready. So you're going to have a private testing area. There shouldn't be other people there, it should be quiet and calm, and there shouldn't be anything in the background behind you, really. You should turn off all noise-making devices. That could be mobile phones, your home phone line, anything that could make sound. And you should ensure that your face is clearly lined up with the camera and visible. And you should close any irrelevant applications or tabs on your computer. So there should only be one tab open to OWL, and there should be no other applications other than your web browser running on your computer. And you should be sitting directly in front of your webcam, and it should be in a well-lit area so you can see your face clearly on the webcam. Some more general guidelines. You have to have a valid photo ID. This should be your student ID in most cases, but if for some reason you don't have a student ID, you can also use a driver's license or something like that. You should only have one keyboard and mouse on your computer, and you should note that this assessment is going to be timed. And personal items should be put away, so you shouldn't have things like sunglasses, keys, phones, tablets, anything like that out. Those should all be stored away and turned off. Then there'll also be a section for your instructor's guidelines for the current test. So these will be different exam to exam and from instructor to instructor. So make sure you read them closely because they won't necessarily be the same each time. So for this example, we have physical books are not allowed. That means you can't have any textbooks out. Doesn't necessarily refer to paper though, that'll be another item. It says online and digital resources are not allowed. That means you can only have the OWL page open. You can't be accessing any other kind of digital resource, any files on your computer, or any other website. This says digital note-taking is not allowed. And they should note that this is different from handwritten notes. So digital note-taking means that you can't use things like Word or Notepad on your actual computer and a keyboard to write notes, whereas handwritten notes down here is referring to actually writing notes on paper. Your instructor also may enable this if they want you to have like a cheat sheet, in which case you should make sure that you refer to the exam rules to see what they mean. They mean you're just allowed to have paper to write notes, or if they mean that you're allowed to have a cheat sheet. So headphones are not allowed, scanning or taking pictures is not allowed, short breaks are not allowed. But an important thing to note about this is probably going to be turned on for all exams, but it does still allow you to go to the bathroom. This just means it's going to flag your exam when you go to the bathroom. That's completely fine. Just say to the camera, I'm going to the bathroom. And when your instructor looks at that point in the video, they'll know what's going on and they won't cause any issues. So this says food and drinks are not allowed. Your instructor may set this differently. Same thing with calculators. And again, there's a difference here between physical calculators and on-screen calculators. Physical calculator would be one in your hand, and on-screen calculators would be things like this calculator app on Windows here. In this case, both are not allowed. Printing's not allowed, copying and pasting is allowed, print screen's disabled, and it says multiple monitors are not allowed. So after you've read through all those rules and you understand them, click the I've read the rules and understand them button and go to the next step. And this is where it's going to ask you to actually download and install Proctortrack. So you click download and Proctortrack if you haven't installed it already. If you've already have Proctortrack installed, then you can hit connect to Proctortrack. In this case, we probably don't have it installed already, so we're going to hit download. So this will take a few minutes, but I actually already have a downloaded complete, ready to go. We'll start that one. And this will just guide you through installing Proctortrack. So now that you have this screen up, you can click the connect to Proctortrack. So it's kind of confusing because there's a window on top of it. So make sure you have your browser and you click in your browser. You can move this out of the way. connect to Proctortrack. And it should say connection successful, and the screen should change. So it's just going to have an agreement. Click I confirm, and I agree. And now it's just going to do a scan of your computer and make sure everything is compliant with the exam rules. If something were to go wrong at this point, it would give you an alert, and you'd have to resolve that before you could take the exam. And that's why it's so important to do this onboarding process, because we want to get rid of those issues right away before exam date. So right now it's asking me for what webcam I have. If you have more than one webcam on your system, it needs you to pick the correct one. And you can open up the list and see the webcams available on your system. If your webcam isn't there or you haven't plugged it in yet, plug it in and then hit refresh. And then open up the list again and select your webcam. Once you have your webcam selected, hit confirm. So if you get an error like this, it's saying that it's detected a few apps that it doesn't like. In this case, it's conflicting with some of the NVIDIA programs for some reason. So right here, you can see I have NVIDIA open. So just exit that. Or you can click Force Close Apps. And then once you've closed the applications, you can hit Retry. And once you have all those applications closed, it should say that your system is ready for the exam, and hit Continue. The next part will be verifying your identity, and you're going to need your student ID for this part. So you can hit Continue after you've read this. It talks a little bit about how they're going to protect your privacy. And now they're going to want to do the face scan. You want to get your face sort of inside this shape. And it has some instructions for this. So you want it to be well lit. And you don't want it to be like in front of a window or anything. That's going to make you a silhouette. Make sure you're well lit. Get close enough inside the shape. Hit Start Scan. And then look right. Look left. And it will show you the result here. If you didn't like how it took it, like you can take a little better look here. Then you can hit Retake. Otherwise, if you're happy with the picture, hit Next. And at this point, you would have to scan your ID. I'm not going to put my real ID in the public video, so I just have a piece of white card here. But you should have your real student ID here. And when you want to start scanning, just hit Start Scan. Once you're happy with that, and once again, yours should be a real student ID or a government-issued ID, you can take a look at the picture. That looks fine. You can hit Next. If you want to retake it, hit Retake, and then click Next. And that brings us to our next step, the room scan. So the idea behind the room scan is that we're going to take our webcam and go over every little part of the room and just prove that there's nothing irregular going on. So you want to cover your desk, your monitor, your computer setup under your desk, show all the walls, the ceiling, the floor, basically everything. And this helps protect you as well as prove that there's nothing irregular going on, because if you were to get accused of anything later on, then you'd have this evidence to show that there was nothing irregular in your room. So do take your time to use your camera and cover all the different areas in your room. Now, if you have a webcam that's built into your laptop, like this one, for example, what you can do is simply just move the laptop around and try to use that to cover everything in your room. Make sure to get like the desk, behind the monitor, floor, all things like that. And if for some reason you didn't have a webcam that could be moved, that was fixed in place, and you couldn't even pick up the laptop, then you can also get a mirror and do the same thing. Just use the mirror to sort of angle things around. Might take a little more time, it'd be a little more tricky, so I do recommend trying to have an external webcam that you can move by just grabbing it like this, and then moving it around the room to scan every little area. Now, if your instructor allows you to have handwritten notes during the exam on paper, you are going to have to make sure that you show all the blank sheets, as well as the back of the sheets, just to prove that there's nothing on there if you're allowed handwritten notes. If you're allowed a cheat sheet, you also have to show the cheat sheet, show the full cheat sheet, and also get the back, because there can be rules about it being one-sided. So make sure you cover those in your room scan too. Now, the problem with the room I'm in right now is that if I were to start the room scan right now, there's just too much stuff going on in here to write and examine. We got cables everywhere, multiple monitors, lighting, things like that. So to give you a better idea of how the room scan will work, let's start it now. What we're going to do is we're going to jump over to my other room where I have an office set up, and we will show how the room scan is done in a proper environment. So let's beam over there now. Okay, welcome to my office slash gym slash laundry room. This room is a little bit more ideal for doing a Proctortrack exam, as it is much quieter and there is no chance of anyone coming in because we have a nice door right there. However, there is still a few issues. But first, let's take a look around. To the desk, and this is an example of how you should do the room scan. You should cover everything on your desk. You should cover all the walls. There should basically be no doubt that you're in this room alone, and that you have nothing on the walls at all. That would be like cheat sheets or any kind of resources that you could use for the exam. Where you also get the ceilings, floors, under the desk, above anywhere that you might have anything written at all. Could be at all suspicious. So this room does have a few issues, and I'd like to give you a second to try to, based on what we've been talking about so far, try to identify some of the problems with what we have out right now on this desk and in this room. That would be issues for both your onboarding and for the final exam. So let's go through some of the issues. The first big one is we have the textbook for the course out. So things like textbooks, your notes, any kind of books, stuff like that, should all be put away. Another issue is that we have the two keyboards again. We're only allowed one keyboard, one monitor, and one mouse. So this keyboard is going to have to go. We have writing instruments out. However, no handwritten notes are allowed for this exam, so those are going to have to go too. We have a calculator. No calculators are allowed. That's going to have to go. We have little notes. And even if these notes aren't related to the course, we still shouldn't have them out. Everything should be tidy and put away. There should be no way for anyone to even make an accusation of cheating. There shouldn't be any notes available at all. See that we have some chips. No food's allowed during the exam, so that's going to have to go. There's a phone. Your phone should be turned off and stowed away. Should be out of view. We have a drink. That's not allowed. No drinks or food. We have headphones. No headphones are allowed, so those should be put away. I have some unrelated projects and stuff, and we should be generally tidy, so all this type of stuff should be away. Shouldn't be paper, notes, anything like that. And the other issue is up here, we have a television. So all secondary monitors or television should be disconnected from the computer and turned off and covered. So what we're going to have to do with this is cover it with a sheet of some kind. We also have these big windows here that anyone could walk up to, so we'd want to cover these windows as well. So let's take a look at how everything should be. So as you can see, my desk has now been cleared off. There's no textbooks, second keyboards, headphones, drinks, snacks, anything like that. Workspaces have been cleaned up. Anything hanging on the walls with text has been covered. In this case, I just used a towel. The TV has been covered. Anything else that can be taken down was taken down. Doors are still closed. Blinds have been drawn. And the other door is closed. So this is what your setup should look like. Nice and clean. Nothing that could be mistaken for a book or a textbook or any notes. And no weird items or electronics anywhere. After you've scanned the whole room, get the ceilings, floors, all the walls, your computer, around the back of the computer, anything like that, just a thorough scan of the room. Then you can continue on with the rest of the process, which is going to be starting your exam. So let's beam back there now. And we're back. And to stop your scan, simply click the Stop Scan button. And it will ask you if you want to retake your scan. If you think you didn't quite cover everything, you can hit Retake and film it again. Otherwise, if you think it's good, hit Next. And like with the screens we saw before, you can replay it here. And again, it's going to show us the rules from your instructor. So these will be different depending on your instructor and depending on the exam. So do make sure that you read through all of them carefully. It also has some tips down here for how to take the exam. We've gone over most of these before. Things like be in a quiet room, sit directly in front of the webcam, have clear lighting, turn off anything noise making, ensure your face is visible, make sure no one else is around you, and close Proctortrack once you're done your exam. We'll take a look at that in a sec. So once you're sure you're 100% ready to go, you can then hit Start. Also at the top of this, you'll have a little note from your instructor in some cases, and they're allowed to put some text there that shows up to you before your exam starts, so make sure you do read that. In this case, I just have some default tests saying that you've started the onboarding process. So once you've read over all the rules and you're ready to go, hit Start Proctoring, and this will open up your final exam and start the countdown timer. So a few things just happened here. It opened up to the exam in your browser, and it also made this overlay. And what this overlay is that's what Proctortrack is. And you can see this blue border around it. That means that's where it's going to be recording on your screen. And you can see this box down here where it shows a picture of you in your webcam, and that shows what is being recorded down here. So if you don't want to see yourself during the whole exam, what you can do is just minimize this here, like that. Now, when you want to actually start the exam, you're going to see that it has the instructions for the exam here. This is just an onboarding example, so it's not very long. Your actual exam might have far more detailed rules and instructions, but the important part here is that it's going to be asking you for a password. So how do you get it from Proctortrack? Well, you can see it says exam password right here. So if you click on that, it says that it has been copied into your clipboard. So what that means is that you can now go to the assignment password and hit paste. Or you could hit Control V. So once again, just because that's important, to get your exam password, you click on this little thing down here that says exam password. You'll copy it to your clipboard, and then you can paste it in right here by either going right-clicking on it and hitting paste, or you can hit Control V in your keyboard. That'd be Control V. And that puts the password in for you. Also, select the honor pledge if your instructor selected that. That's just saying that you're doing this exam on your own. Once you're ready, hit begin assessment. So once again, because it's so important, you get the password from Proctortrack by clicking the exam password button down here. So you should now be into your final exam or your onboarding exam if you're doing the onboarding process. I will have a timer up here that you can keep track of to see how much time you have left. If that bugs you, you can hide it like this. And you can also get a little more space on your screen by hitting this button up here, just to make the Proctortrack overlay a little bit smaller. So your exam might look a little bit different depending on how your instructor set it up. In this case, I have one question per page. For onboarding, these will just be sort of general questions, maybe about the exam or just sort of nonsense questions. But for the final exam, they will be real questions about the content of your course, of course. So if you haven't used exam on OWL before, you usually have a table of contents. That'll let you jump to certain parts of the exam. And you can also pop up the side to see where you are. Now, if your instructor has selected a linear access exam, that means you have one question at a time and you can't go backwards or forwards. You won't have these options. Instead, you'll have to do one question, then the next, and then the next in order. You can't jump back and forth. If they have random access on, you can use these tools like table of contents and this over here to jump to certain questions. You also see this option here. If your instructor has enabled it, you can mark questions for review. So you're just clicking that checkbox, and all that will do is that on the screen over here, they'll put a little mark beside the questions, and at the end of the exam, you can go back and know which questions you wanted to take another look at. It's sort of like in real life where you might put a little star beside a question if you wanted to review that later at the end. But once again, your instructor has to enable that. So another question you might have is, well, I'm working through this exam. What if I get stuck? Maybe I have a technical issue, or maybe there's a question I have about one of the questions. Well, the proper way to deal with that is to go to OWL, and you should still have another tab up open from when you started Proctortrack already on OWL, and go to your course site. So it should be the site for your course, and you'll see that there's an extra tab here called Western Exam Chat. So you want to click on this, and then you'd log in here and follow through the steps, and it will allow you to contact with one of the Western Exam support people, and they'll be able to help you with your technical issues, as well as forward some questions onto the course instructor in some limited cases. So you'd log in here. And then you would select your exam. I don't have any listed right here right now because there's no active exams. And then you'd hit Start Chat. And you'd be able to chat with Western Exam support personnel. And that's the only other website you should ever access, unless your instructor has specifically said you can access something else. So back to the exam. If you're going through this, you want to just look at the questions. For onboarding, your answers don't matter. For your real exam, obviously they would matter. I'm just going to fast forward going through them till we can get to the end of the exam. This would be an example of a fill in the blank type question where you'd have to actually type some text. And once you're done, you hit Submit for grading, and that would end your exam. So in this case, we'd hit Submit. And make sure that you're sure, it's basically saying, and you hit Submit for grading. And you should get a nice screen that looks something like this. Your instructor may have added some text, like I have here. And that means you've now submitted your exam, but you're not done yet because Proctortrack is still running. So the way we end out the Proctortrack side of the exam, and you have to do this on your final exam and during onboarding, is you open back up the overlay. I'm just hitting the arrows to expand it and close it, and you hit End Proctoring. You can also hit End down here. So you hit End. I'll make sure that you're sure, and then it will start the uploading process. For onboarding, this will be really quick because it's a short exam and there's not much recorded, but for your final exam, it could take quite some time. So just leave it. Your camera should have turned off at this point, so you can go have a snack, and don't close the application until it shows 100% like this. Then once it shows 100%, you have two options. You can just quit. That will leave Proctortrack still installed on your system for a future exam. Or if you want Proctortrack gone, you just hit uninstall, and it will uninstall the application for you. So now that you've completed the onboarding process, if you click on the Proctortrack tab, it should show you over here that your baseline status is processing. So it will take up to a day or two for them to process your onboarding process and let you know if it was successful or not. So once it's been processed, you should get an email saying onboarding was successful or not successful. If it was not successful, that means you're going to have to redo it, and you should look at their description of why it wasn't successful, so you know what to fix for the next time you do the onboarding. So I've jumped back into the exam for a second because there's one more thing I want to show you, and that's when things go wrong with your exam. Like maybe your browser crashes, maybe your computer starts, or things like that. So right now we're in the exam, Proctortrack's running, everything's okay so far. But what if something happens like your browser crashes? So maybe you're going through answering some of the questions like this. And then let's say your browser crashes or closes like that. But Proctortrack's still running. You know Proctortrack's still running because you still have this interface here. Well, it's fairly easy to get back in. All you have to do is end your Proctortrack session, hit end. It's going to upload, and then open up your browser again. Head to OWL. Log in again, and then you have to restart the exam the same way you started it before. You click on Proctortrack, you click Go to Test, and this time you don't have to read it as closely because it's going to be exactly the same as when you started. And now this time you can just open the link rather than downloading it again because you should already have Proctortrack installed. It should connect. And unfortunately, you're going to have to go through this process again to start everything up. Just going to have to do the system check again. You're going to have to select the webcam, do the room scan, scan your ID, all that over again, which is kind of a pain, but it's better than not being able to finish your exam. So at this point, you're going to have to do the face scan, the ID scan, and the room scan again. Try to do that quickly as possible, but still do make sure you get everything correct and a detailed room scan. I'm going to jump right back to the exam. So once you get to this page, you should be able to start the exam again. And you'll have to log in again. So remember, you get your exam password from this little box down here that says exam password. And that should copy it for you. And then you paste it in like that and hit continue assessment. And you'll see that it started off with our answer already filled in. So you won't lose your answers when your computer crashes or it starts, but you do have to do the whole Proctortrack process again to get started. And you can see the answers that I had put in are still there. If you want to jump back to where you left off, you can use the table contents if your instructor allows random access. If not, it'll probably start you off right where you left off. So I could jump right here to the question I didn't answer yet. So once again, if your computer crashes, Proctortrack crashes, browser crashes, close out everything, restart the browser, restart the process into getting into Proctortrack, and it should take you back and continue where you left off with your answers still filled in. So that's all I have for you in this video about Proctortrack. If you have any questions about the Proctortrack process, please do ask your course instructor, or you can reach out to Western's exam support if you have questions during the exam. Once again, you use that by clicking on this button shown on the screen that should be on your OWL site. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.